In 2010, South Korea experienced a particularly cold winter. They couldn't activate their smartphones while wearing gloves. They began wielding snack sausages, leading one company to see a 40% rise in sausage sales. So, could sausages do what the gloves couldn't? In other words, how did touchscreens actually work? In 1965, the first ever touchscreen was invented to help British air traffic controllers effectively update flight plans. However, the technology was so unwieldy and expensive for widespread routes. In the following decades, engineers further developed this technology and experimented with alternative kinds of touchscreens. And resistive touchscreens dominate the market. In 2007, Apple released the first iPhone. This breakthrough had a function through the same principle. The touchscreen, capitans. Nowadays, capitans and resistive touchscreen are two of the most common types. Both use an external input to complete their electrical circuits. In conductive materials, electron flows around atoms, forming an electric current. In contrast to insulators, electrons with conductors are weakly bound and flow easily. A resistant touchscreen has two layers. Top is a clear, flexible material, usually plastic. The bottom is something rigid, like glass. These layers are coated with conductive substance, especially in the thin gap. When something pushes hard enough, the layers connect, completing the electric circuit. There's a change in the voltage that the machine software reacts to. Resistant touchscreens can't be a little responsive, and generally cheap and durable. We favor it to industrial or mass use. The vast majority of the touchscreens produced in 2007 were resistives. Used following an iPhone's release, those become captive. Individual models vary, but smartphone touchscreens today usually consist of a protective, insulting glass exterior, an LCD screen at the bottom that produces the images you see. The glass exterior and the LCD screens are separate sheets. One is lined with rows of a transparent conductive material, which gives an alternate electric current. Insulting layer separates these conductive lines from others. They are arranged from columns, one top of the other, the lines from a grid. Where they intersect are called nodes. The phone's battery draws the electrons along the first layers of lines, and some electrons accumulate at every node, in a small electric field. These screens are called captive touchscreens, because the nodes act like capacitors by storing charge. They're generally easier to use than resistive touchscreens. They easily act directly with your finger without the application of force. Your body is a great conductor and is constantly transmitting electric currents. Why? Because about 60% of you is water. Now, while chemically pure water is an oscillator, this water is impure. The water inside you is loaded with ions, atoms or molecules that have a net electrical charge. When you click on an app, your finger functions like a third electrical line. It interacts with the existing electric field. This is a weak electric current that travels through your fingers, initially back to the phone. It changes the amount of charge that is affected nodes. Voltage measurements along the second layer of lines tells the phone's microprocessor which part of the screen is being touched. However, if you try using a smartphone while your hands are wet and gloved, you'll probably have some trouble. Both interrupt the electrical connection between your finger and the phone. If water splashes across the screen, it may trigger many underlying nodes. The phone could act like you touched it multiple places at once. On the other hand, gloves are insulators, so the charge has nowhere to go. Meanwhile, objects that conduct electricity about as well as your finger, like banana peels or certain processed meats, and they'll activate the screen. Not just hum and clutch when you're in a pickle. Another new technology that feels like it was lifted from the pages of